Smackdown 12/22/23. I know, BC, how do you have the review up already? The show hasn't even hit the airwaves yet. Well, guys, this was a tape show from last week. The holidays are upon us. Christmas is in 3 days. And because of that, WWE actually taped tonight's Smackdown last week after that live edition of Smackdown went off the air. So right after last week's Smackdown went off the airwaves, they taped this week's show. That's why we have access to the spoilers. I've been sitting on these all week, but I feel this is the right time to discuss because I won't have time after the show, and I do want to talk about tonight's show. So that's just a heads up, a little bit of a forewarning. This is going to be a spoiler edition for the review of Smackdown this week. I'm going to tell you guys what the card is, how it actually went down, what happened, and my thoughts on every segment. So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, earmuffs. Usually I would say just come back for the next upload, but we're going to talk some other topics as well after we go over tonight's show, like Ridge Holland and all of the controversy surrounding Ridge Holland. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, well, we'll just wait till we talk about it later in this upload because it is heavy controversy. It is a big topic of discussion, and I'll give you my candid thoughts on it, especially what recently happened with Big E. You know, is this not the way to go for WWE? And is there even a point to it? I will absolutely discuss the Ridge Holland situation in this upload because I know a lot of you guys are wondering my thoughts on it, and I have not discussed it yet. And I did not catch NXT either with the whole Dragunov Ridge Holland scenario, but JR9 did, and we'll go over his NXT report from this week. And I know he gave some great details, and I was able to form a conclusion from them. So that's why I say normally if it's a spoiler review, I just say come back next upload. But there's other things we will be discussing. But I do want to start off with the spoilers for tonight. There's 2 matches for the United States Championship #1 contender tournament. Say that 10 times fast. Ridiculous. There was 2 matches tonight. Escobar versus Lashley and Kevin Owens versus Carmelo Hayes. Basically, face versus face. Owens and Hayes is face versus face. So you know you're going to get a Paul Levesque McMahon mutual respect handshake when it's all said and done. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, Cody Rhodes several times over the last couple of months has been saying that backstage all the wrestlers are trying to think of a new name, a new era name, right? They feel like they have something special, but they don't have a name for the era. So BC took it upon himself to say it's the mutual respect era. Because all we're seeing is a bunch of face versus face matches, even heel versus heel matches. Levesque McMahon doesn't care. He's like, go out there and have an athletic contest. They'll ooh and ah like sheep. They'll yell, this is awesome, and then just shake hands afterwards. No harm, no foul. So you have Owens and Melo, face versus face, so you're just going to confuse your audience and split them in half. And then you have Escobar Lashley, which at least half of your audience probably still looks at Lashley as a heel. Guys, I'm not even joking. I don't even know what Lashley is. Sometimes he's booked like the Street Profits as a face. Sometimes they're booked as a heel. Right? The Profits turned heel by turning heel. Remember, they beat up the faces backstage. So that made them heel. So how did they seamlessly go back to face? They didn't, to BC. I still look at the Street Business as a faction as heels. Just poorly booked. But Lashley's the same thing. Just Lashley beating Karrion Kross last week to advance in the tournament didn't make BC go, Lashley's a face. No. They've had promos where they have portrayed themselves as heels. So I don't know how we're supposed to look at the Street Business right now. But to me, when I see Lashley and Escobar in a match, the first thing I think of is heel versus heel. So if Lashley is supposed to be more of a face, guess what? WWE failed to put him in that image. Because I know BC ain't the only one. So Escobar and Lashley is basically heel versus heel to many of us, and Owens and Hayes is face versus face. And if you're wondering how I feel about tournaments, you're probably not, right? Whether you've been subscribed to this channel from the very beginning or you're new to this channel, a new subscriber. First and foremost, the utmost respect, appreciation, and love right back to every single one of you guys. Thank you, and welcome. But no matter which side of the spectrum you're on, how long you've been subscribed to this channel, by now you know my thoughts on tournaments. They have been ran into the wall and into the ground to a point of nauseum. Back in the day, tournaments, they felt special because they were special, right? They were positioned in meaningful situations. For instance, WWF WrestleMania 4. The entire WrestleMania was surrounded or situated upon who was going to win the World Heavyweight Championship tournament. All of WrestleMania 4 was on the back of that tournament. And when it was all said and done, it was Macho Man Randy Savage to hoist up that Winged Eagle Championship. Years later, WWF had a standalone pay-per-view. It was called King of the Ring. Literally, it was a pay-per-view based on a tournament. And when it was all said and done, it was done so beautifully that you were crowned the King of the Ring. A scepter, a stupid robe. I mean, looking back at it, you could say it was absolutely stupid, but it felt so special because they made it so special. When it was all said and done, you felt like whoever got the King of the Ring, it was almost like getting a championship. Nowadays, tournaments are for everything. Best in the world, right? This was a real thing not too long ago. They had a tournament to decide who was the best in the world. What? There's tournaments all the time, not just for the titles anymore that have been vacant, but for number one contenders. Logan Paul just got this title last month, and there's a whole tournament to see who is going to face him. Now, what happens when he runs through the first person? Most likely Kevin Owens. How are you going to get to his next number one contender? You're going to have a simplistic fatal four-way like they always do, right? How foolish is that going to make the company? We had to wait 4 weeks to see who was going to face Logan Paul. And now we're just going to decide it in 10 minutes. Let's throw 4 dudes in the ring, fatal four-way. It's foolish. But that's the only thing WWE does, right? To decide a number one contender, they just do 3 situations. A battle royal, or a fatal four-way, or a tournament. And the tournaments are the most laziest form of booking you can come across because it allows the creators and the bookers to grab a postie pad, grab a Sharpie pen, and you, in 5 minutes, can write the next 4 weeks of television. Easy peasy, as Oscar would say. It's lazy. So, if you're BC, tell me how you really feel about tournaments. By now, you guys know this, but I just wanted to reiterate. So because this is a spoiler review, the show hasn't hit the airwaves, but these are the matches that happened tonight. If you want my thoughts on it, which is why you clicked onto the upload, that's why you're listening right now, to hear BC's thoughts on these wrestling situations, well, there's my thoughts on the tournament itself. Of course I don't care about it. For 4 weeks, we have to try to see who Logan Paul is going to face. If you're trying to do Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul, you could have just had a storyline from the jump. You didn't have to use this. This should not be used. An entire tournament should not be used for a mid-card storyline with Logan Paul and Kevin Owens. And most likely, that's what it's looking like. Because that's what happens tonight. Escobar defeats Lashley, and he does this thanks to some help from Humberto and Garza. They've been having a couple 2-3 coffees down in NXT. They decided to come back and have some fun on the main roster. So you have Mysterio and Carlito with the LWO, and then you have a side LWO that Escobar is forming. That's what it looks like. I don't know what this does for Lashley, and it does even less for Karrion Kross, who had to lose to Lashley 2 weeks ago. And as far as Owens defeating Melo, I mean, that's one of those situations where Melo just beat Grayson Waller last week, loses to Owens this week. We call that 50-50 booking, and there's no reason for the main roster audience to care about him. He's just another average guy. That's what happens when you 50-50 book people. Subconsciously, even if you want to love these individuals, subconsciously you're being told by yourself, that's an average dude. And nobody gets behind average. Owens defeats Hayes. He advances to the finals with Escobar. And if you're wondering, you shouldn't be wondering. This is the mutual respect era. It's face versus face. So yes, the answer is yes. After the match, Owens and Melo shook hands and hugged it out. They showed mutual respect for one another. Because again, we call this the Paul Levesque McMahon mutual respect era. Just have wrestler A and wrestler B. I don't care if they're a face or a heel. Have them go out there and put on an athletic sporting competition. And the fans will ooh and ah. They'll chant, "This is awesome." And then you guys shake hands. And we'll do it again with the next two people we send out. So Owens and Melo, they have an athletic competition contest. And then they shake hands. I beat you, but you got heart, kid. Yeah, I beat you, but man, you gave me a tough matchup, man. Right? So the audience is supposed to go, wow, Melo lost, but we got to keep an eye on Melo. He's going to be really good, man. The problem is when you do it all the time, each time it becomes less and less impactful. Just like tournaments. This mutual respect era, I'm not shocked at all that the ratings are going backwards fast. Raw cannot get out of the 1.4, 1.5s the last several months. The lowest that Monday Night Raw's rating has been in its show history under Paul Levesque McMahon. And SmackDown just went from a 2.2 to a 2.1, and I wouldn't be shocked if they fall well under 2. Holiday, and it's a tape show, and it's a bunch of tournament matches. So ratings are going backwards. It's a big reason why Monday Night Raw doesn't have a home yet for 2024. Nobody's willing to shell out what Nick Khan wants. They don't think it's worth it. There's reasons to all of this. This is why I say how you present these matches, these tournaments, these superstars, every decision matters. Mutual respect. You know, I'm kind of glad I'm doing these spoilers, man. I'm probably saving a lot of you guys some time from having to watch this stuff. Especially like this one, Dragunov defeating Butch via pinfall to retain his NXT North American Championship. Thank goodness! Right before the holidays, 2 hours of our Friday night, we're going to watch Dragon Lee versus Butch. Because BC, they're two good wrestlers and they're going to do a lot of wrestling moves. They're really shoving Dragon Lee in front of every show lately. Dragon Lee this, Dragon Lee that. I don't see it. I see a very random day. He's a good wrestler. I get he's got talent. The charisma and the personality of a Creed brother. It's non-existent. Mic skills? I don't know who would be Ricochet or him. I don't know. I mean, on the microphone, you're not being captivated by this dude. So I get it. Dragon Lee's a good wrestler. And that scratches the itch for a lot of the newer type 2023 type of fan where they just want to see all these athletic competitions and rate it 5 or 6 stars, right? But for the rest of us that want pro wrestling to be what it is, pro wrestling, larger than life characters, storylines, be intrigued, not just enjoy wrestling, right? There's the fans that want to just enjoy wrestling. They even make little signs that say, enjoy wrestling. And then there's those of us that say, no, we want to be captivated by pro wrestling. That's what made us fall in love with it. Dragon Lee defeats Butch. I don't know what they're doing with Butch. Just make him P.D. Dunne and hope for the best at this point. You're also going to have tonight Bianca, Belair, Zelina, Vega, and Munchkin, along with Shotzi. So it's like an 8-woman tag. Belair, Zelina, Munchkin, and Shotzi. They're going to defeat Damage Control. And this is going to be the Christmas, what they call it? The Havoc, the Holiday Havoc match, I believe it's called. So this is the SmackDown version of the Miracle on 34th Christmas Street fight from Monday night. This is their version of it. So maybe you're going to get more Christmas trees being thrown at people. Maybe you're going to get the candy cane kendo sticks, Santa Claus's milk and cookie table setups, big giant presents that have nothing inside them, but they're being put on somebody's head maybe. I wouldn't be shocked. But the faces are going to defeat Damage Control because there's your champion, Io, in a holiday-themed gimmick match, losing nonsensically. In an 8-man tag, you're going to have your women's champion in that type of a match. Damage Control, not long ago, all looking badass with the addition to Kairi Sane and Asuka. So we have that SmackDown not long ago where they went off the air, all with their hands up, and we're like, oh, this is bad. Now Damage Control is legit. And here we are. They're just being handed an L in a holiday gimmick match. Now apparently Isla Dawn and Alba Fire attacked Kairi Sane during the match. So they're going to try to make Dawn and Fire faces then. So they're going to be faces. Okay. Dawn and Fire are perfect for heels, though. I mean, they got that, like, witchcrafty type character, that kind of supernaturally, that works first and foremost as a heel. See, I know a lot of you guys are thinking Damage Control simplistically will go after Carter and Chance, but you could build Dawn and Fire to be in that role. So they would be the faces. So the only way that works, so Kairi and Asuka, the Kabuki Warriors, would get the titles from Chance and Carter, but that shouldn't be till like WrestleMania. And then Fire and Dawn would go after them. You're starting a SummerSlam feud for, I don't even know. Knowing WWE, they'll just put all 3 teams in Mania, right? Damage Control, Carter, Chance, and Alba and Isla. I don't know. That's interesting, actually, to see how that was done. How the attack was put on. But all right, at least that's a reason why Damage Control lost. I still don't feel like they should be losing, period. And then AJ Styles has a promo. He wants Roman Reigns. So it looks like he's like a face. But last week, his actions showed different. He went after Roman, but then he clotheslined LA Knight and immediately got booed. So now, this week, he's just calling out Roman. LA Knight and Randy Orton hit the ring. They want Roman. And LA Knight wants an explanation, I'm sure, on AJ. So Nick Aldis, the general manager of SmackDown, comes out, and he books Orton, LA Knight, AJ Styles, a triple threat for New Year's Revolution. So I believe that is their... I think next week, they're just doing the best of SmackDown. There's a house show for the 29th, but they did not say that was SmackDown. So I think their New Year's show is going to be January 5th in 2 weeks. And I believe that is where you're going to see this triple threat, Knight versus Orton versus Styles. Whoever wins, they will go on to face Roman Reigns at Royal Rumble. So we expect that to be Randy Orton. So Orton will somehow beat Styles and Knight. Hopefully that all makes sense. So that's the big story for tonight. AJ Styles, maybe he'll mention why he did that tonight. He doesn't want anybody in his way. He wants a clear direction to Roman Reigns and winning that championship. So that's the big angle tonight, guys, and that's the spoiler. It's going to set up a triple threat for New Year's Revolution, and then the winner of that will go on to Rumble. So at least we know, confirmed, Roman will be defending at Rumble. He won't be losing it, nor should he, but at least he's showing up to wrestle and defend that championship. He's going to be in a storyline. So we'll see how they go with that, man. But nothing can just happen organically with this company. It's always got to be a fatal four-way, or next week a triple threat, or a tournament, or a battle royal. Just organically name people number one contender. Everything has to be to try to pop a rating, and it's not. That means it's not working. It's doing the opposite effect. People have had enough of you trying to pop a rating with stupidity, so it's actually turning them away in droves. I hope that makes sense. Stop. If you want to get to Orton and Roman, you set it up beautifully last week. Continue. He doesn't have to win a triple threat, because now you're also, You're lessening the impact of triple threats and fatal four-ways going forward to decide number one contenders or champions. Just like, I hope that makes sense, man. The more and more you do these things, it's like steel cages, Hell in a Cell. Even Hell in a Cell, right? We've seen so many over the last several years that it's not even special. Just a few years ago, you guys remember there was a Hell in a Cell on Raw, then there was the pay-per-view, then there was SmackDown. Or maybe it was SmackDown, pay-per-view, Raw. But 3 nights in a row, you got a Hell in a Cell match. There was some events where you had 2 Hell in a Cell matches in one night. A far cry from The Undertaker and Mick Foley back in 98 at King of the Ring. Oh, that's right. Hold on. Time out. But wait, there's more. There's actually more SmackDown. Guys, the main event. I didn't even go over that. Talking about the AJ Styles story with Roman Reigns. I forgot to talk about the actual main event, which was AJ Styles defeating Solo Sikoa. This is via disqualification. Roman Reigns attacks AJ. Knight and Orton, also Jimmy Uso, they all are involved. They're all brawling to close out the show. Apparently, the last man standing is LA Knight. So a little bit, last night, LA Knight flat on his ass thanks to AJ Styles. On tonight's show, it looks like LA Knight will be standing tall. That doesn't look good for the triple threat. It looks like maybe he's the one to eat the L. And Randy Orton maybe covers him. And maybe Styles helps do that with the Styles Clash. Maybe a phenomenal forearm into an RKO. Who knows? But you never want to be the one standing tall before a pay-per-view or a big match. Right? Because that usually means you're going to be losing. So Styles defeating Solo. So everybody thought Styles turned heel. Or at least really took a giant step to doing such last week. But no, he's in there defeating Solo Sikoa. So it looks like they will keep him as a face. They have a face problem in WWE. There's way too many of them. So AJ Styles as a heel could have... I loved AJ Styles as a heel back in the day, by the way. So I'm hoping that when it's all said and done, somehow, some way he does go full throttle heel. Judging by what I am reading on this show, doesn't seem like it's going to be tonight. All right, now that's definitely that's it for SmackDown, all right? That's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed if you're going to check it out, man. There's just not a lot of substance on tonight's show, and that's to be expected. It's taped. Nobody really had their right mindset because everybody was already thinking of the holidays last week when it was taped. I get it. We'll throw them a mulligan, but in 2 weeks... they best come ready, man. Because again, next week I think is going to be a best of SmackDown show, guys. There's a house show on Friday, the 29th. But it does not say that house show is SmackDown Live TV. So it looks like it's just a house show. So 2 weeks, New Year's Revolution is when we will review SmackDown next. All right, now, before we end this upload, Ridge Holland. For those that don't know, there's a new angle that is happening with Holland. New character trajectory. They're basically just jacking Xia Li's character, where Xia Li would be so vicious, so brutal, that she would knock her opponent out in the ring, and the referee would have to call for a stoppage. And that was only for a couple weeks, and then they had Xia Li lose back-to-back matches against Becky Lynch, and I believe, who was it, Valkyria? Something like that. And then you haven't seen Xia Li since. Well, now we know why. They're taking that gimmick, because it was working, and they gave it to Ridge Holland. So what WWE decided to do is not only use that, put that as a Holland angle, but also utilize that as part of Holland's character trajectory. And they had Holland take out Dragunov this past Tuesday on NXT television in a very real situation. And it had a lot of fans going, are they tone deaf? Are they not reading the room? Big E is most likely never going to wrestle again. Because I don't know how many docs are going to sign off on that. The fact that he's walking today is amazing in its own right. And they got Holland just doing this as a side shtick. So I get it. This is not new to pro wrestling, though. WWE is just the main culprits, but pro wrestling has always done this. Take real-life events and try to anyway, utilize them as a storyline. Sometimes it works, like Seth Rollins and Punk. Sometimes it doesn't, like Retribution, right? Retribution was a play on what was actually happening in the streets of America anyway, the political climate There was a lot of anarchy in the streets, and they tried to make this group that was committing that in WWE, and it failed miserably. Just wasn't the timing. People weren't having it. They didn't want to see it in real time and then on their entertainment. Some things work, some things don't. Pro wrestling always has and will continue, and they should take the real life events and use them in storylines. But there's times and places for it. There's some cases where it shouldn't be done. And I think that's why a lot of pro wrestling fans are upset at this situation, because this is very real. And Ridge Holland should go back and train better. Ridge Holland, there's no reason why he can't just take many months off to retrain, because Big E's not the first person that he injured. And there's been several other times where it was so close that an inch this way or an inch that way, and somebody like Johnny Gargano could have had a broken neck. So you just retrain them, and there's no reason why not to. But instead, WWE decides to go with that's what I do. I just injure everybody's storyline. It doesn't sit well with a lot of fans. I'm not saying BC's why. I don't know enough of the sitch. I didn't watch Tuesday night's NXT show. I mean, I gathered all of this talk from so many different outlets, and everybody is outraged. JR9 Gaming, my right-hand man on the channel, does his weekly roundup on the channel for NXT. And this week, because I didn't see the show, I looked toward his roundup to get a better grasp of the situation. And JR9, this is what he said word for word about how it all went off. First of all, he says Dragunov sold it beautifully. He says Dragunov's selling during the injury angle was perfect. He made you feel like he's injured long-term. JR9 says, I absolutely can't stand the angle, which is explained in the negatives, but I have to praise Dragunov's selling. So when we get to the negatives of the show, JR9 says that, let me get to that part too. So the main event was Dragunov and Ridge Holland. WWE decided to do the terrible injury angle, which saw Ridge hit a elevated DDT on Dragunov, and Dragunov never got back up. The match was called off, Dragunov getting stretchered out, Ridge looking concerned about potentially injuring another talent. JR9 says, I can't believe HBK thought doing a Ridge injured someone else angle would be a good idea, especially since Big E may never come back from that injury. It just feels very classless. Plus, I find it really unbelievable to see Dragunov get injured by Ridge, especially after the wars with Gunther. Dragunov has had, let's be honest, nobody cares about Ridge, and this is not going to help him at all. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know they had Holland looking over Dragunov concerned. I thought he was just playing the asshole character, right? Damn right, I knocked him out. Out cold. Who's next? You know, like Xia Li, when she would take out Candice or Indy, it looked real because Candice and Indy sold it beautifully, and Xia Li performed it masterfully. Everybody played their role beautifully, and Xia Li looked at the hard cam like, that's right, who's next? It worked. Even in this case, I don't know what that would do for Holland if he played the asshole, but the fact that they had him concerned, like he just did an accident, right? Oh no, I accidentally hurt somebody in my wrestling match. What is that doing for Ridge Holland? All that is telling your audience is that you're a really bad pro wrestler and you keep hurting these individuals. You're just exposing pro wrestling in the process as well, by the way. But that's another story. On top of that, this does not help Dragunov. You just got injured by Holland of all people. But again, Holland's concerned because he hurt another person. And then you're just making people think about Big E, not the way we should be thinking about Big E. In a good way. I don't get any of this, guys. See, if the positives outweigh the negatives, then let's roll with it. Like Rollins and Punk. We all know the turmoil that Punk can bring. But if there's a way that they can do business, man, the positives are far outweighing the negatives. Let's try to find a way. The company knew that. They knew that. The fans knew that. And look what happened. They're doing business and it's working. On a Monday Night Raw rating that is trenched in the 1.4s and 1.5s, that was the one segment that was almost at a 1.9 when they were face-to-face. That's one of those situations, a real-life event, you put it in a storyline, and it's money. And then you have something like this where it's just, if the negatives are outweighing the positives, you just made the wrong call. And I'm not seeing any positives with this, guys. Not for Dragunov, not for Holland, and not for pro wrestling. I mean, this is bad in every scenario. Just the fake, an actual injury. And I think they're definitely playing off all the controversy from Xia Li recently. And again, that was just storyline. Taking out Candice LeRae, taking out Indy Hartwell. Fans were upset at Xia Li. But it was all beautiful. It was done to perfection. I loved it. Now I think they just got carried away. Well, that got a reaction. What if we did this with Ridge, who is already known for injuring wrestlers? The only problem is now he just looks like a really bad wrestler. Kayfabe and for real. I don't understand. Guys, I tell you, man. I don't even know, bro. That's what I got for you guys, man. Until next time, and there will be a next time. For now, current status, current situation, we are out. There you go. Go long, guys. We're out. BC Top Guys saying peace. Go long.